Grosse Pointe Woods is the city that I invade for this video, and I start the tour right by Monteith Elementary School, a school that's named after John Monteith, who of all things was the founder of the University of Michigan. Go Blue! Grosse Pointe Woods is one out of the 5 Grosse Pointes, in which I have a video uploaded for each. Depending on the time that you see this video, I might still have one video left to upload, that being Grosse Pointe Shores. Nonetheless, after you're done watching this video, you can find whichever Grosse Pointe video you want to see in my Detroit Suburbs playlist, and that will be linked down below. Oh wait, you want me to talk more? Oh, all right. Well, calm down. Okay. We'll get on with it. Okay. All right. Well, currently we're passing by the University Liggett School, a private school which happens to be the oldest independent coeducational day school in all of Michigan. It was founded back in 1878. The athletic teams go by the Knights, and among the most notable Knights in Shiny Armor alumni includes author Jeffrey Eugenides, Edsel Ford II, who's the great-grandson of the Henry Ford, and no, the Edsel Ford Freeway is not named after this guy, rather, this guy's grandpa. Well, there's a few more, as actor Max Gale is an alumni, and actress Julie Harris is as well. Moving on now, as bordering Grosse Pointe Woods to the west is Harper Woods, which is a suburb that has seen better days. To the north, it's St. Clair Shores, which is a decent middle-class suburb even still to this day. To the east is Grosse Pointe Shores, to the south is Grosse Pointe Farms, and Detroit borders Grosse Pointe Woods for a very small stretch along the property of St. John Hospital, in which the hospital is in the Detroit city limits. Some quick facts about Grosse Pointe Woods, as it's the only Grosse Pointe out of the 5 to not border Lake St. Clair. The Woods has more residents than any of the other points. It's also the poorest of the points, but that doesn't really mean anything because it's still an upper-class residential community with an excellent school system. We'll dive more into the data later in the video. For now, I want to jump ahead to where I drive down the main thoroughfare in Grosse Pointe Woods, which is Mack Avenue. It's a rainy day here in Grosse Pointe Woods, Michigan. But I had to come back because I kind of forgot a major street that went through Grosse Pointe when I came in here in the spring. I thought I included it, but I didn't. So I am back, and it is a pretty nasty day out here. It's Wednesday, it's Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. Grosse Pointe Woods, Michigan. Mack Avenue, people. This is where you can find all of the businesses in town, as there's no other street or even a short block of a street within the Grosse Pointe Woods city limits that has commercial zoning. It's all right here along Mack Avenue. There's also more commercial amenities in Grosse Pointe Woods than there are in any of the other Grosse Pointes. That being said, there isn't a single spot along Mack Avenue that distinguishes itself from the rest of the thoroughfare to resemble a downtown. Everything along Mack Avenue kind of looks the same throughout its stretch through Grosse Pointe Woods, but at the same time, there's way more amenities right here than you'll find anywhere else in the Grosse Pointes. So if you're someone that really wants to live in one of the Grosse Pointes, but you'd like to be within walking distance of a nice selection of restaurants and shops, consider living near Mack Avenue in Grosse Pointe Woods. Here in the woods, you're also closer to some other larger big box stores in places like St. Clair Shores or Harper Woods than you are if you're in any of the other Grosse Pointes. But if you're an Amazon snob, of course, that doesn't matter to you, right? I mean, let's be real. Chances are that if you live in one of the Grosse Pointes, or if you're looking to live in one of the Grosse Pointes, chances are that you're an Amazon snob. More and more people are ditching the traditional in-store shopping, especially people in the upper-class demographic. Heck, most people in Grosse Pointe have their wine delivered to them at least once a month, and it's always being ordered from some brand's website that you've never heard of. You know, the wine is always made somewhere crazy like in the Andes, and if you ever get caught up in a conversation with someone from Grosse Pointe and you tell them that you get your wine from either Meijer or the corner store, yeah, you're not only going to get laughed at and judged, But you're also going to get a lecture from a wine snob know-it-all about why your $12 bottle of wine sucks and why their $200 bottle of wine is awesome. I mean, if you can handle that, you'll fit right in, because for these rich people, having a non-wine snob friend will only make them feel better about themselves with their deep knowledge of expensive wines. You know, people like talking about themselves and they like talking about their interests. But if that annoys you, then maybe you should just look somewhere north in St. Clair Shores. Or maybe you could be that person that lives in the Grosse Pointes, but associates yourself with people in St. Clair Shores, and then you're the alpha of the group because you have that elite Grosse Pointe status attached to your address, and you can feel good about yourself that way. Look, I kid, just making jokes here. Everyone's having fun. And enough of this Mack Avenue garbage, as it's all the same up and down this street. Alright, so anyway, it's not just wine snobs in the points. There's more than just wine snobs and golf snobs. There's also equestrian snobs here too. See? Literally, that's right. Grosse Pointe Woods is home to what's called Grosse Pointe Equestrian. And before you throw a bunch of horse crap at me, remember, I'm just making jokes. Just kidding, not ripping on anybody's hobby. It's actually pretty cool that this option is here in a dense city setting. This was purchased from the Grosse Pointe Hunt Club in 2017, and since then it's been renovated into what it is today. If you live in the city and you want to learn how to ride a horse, or you have a kid that wants to learn, this is the place, right here. Pretty neat. Grosse Pointe Woods was incorporated as a village in 1927 and as a city in 1950. I already talked about much of the history within the points in my other Grosse Pointe videos, and it's pretty neat, so make sure to check those videos out in my Detroit Suburbs playlist, linked down below, after you're done watching this one. Now, let's jump into the economic stats for Grosse Pointe Woods. Earlier I mentioned how this is the poorest of the Grosse Pointes, and it's true, but the community still has a six-figure median household income. The city's population peaked in 1970 at 21,000 residents, and since then it's slowly fallen to around 16,000 people, which is where it will likely stay for most of our lifetimes. The median household income, according to the latest data, is $115,000 per year, and as many as 64% of adults 25 and older hold a bachelor's degree or higher. The median value of owner-occupied housing units is $274,000, and the poverty rate is 5.1%. On to the crime rates now, as there's nothing to worry about here. Only 81 for every 100,000 in violent crime, and only 1,001 for every 100,000 in property crime. So, you can feel free to buy a new Kia here, as the chances of someone stealing your car in Grosse Pointe Woods is very low. Although, your neighbors would probably like you more here if you bought an American-made vehicle. I mean, this is the Motor City, where General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, this is where all of the traditional American brands are made, or I guess I should say, this is where the traditional American brands started. Some of them are still made here, but definitely not all. The offices are still here for the big three, but with Grosse Pointe being Detroit's old money utopia, you can only imagine that there are a lot of higher-ups that live in the Grosse Pointes that work at the big three automakers. Just saying. But in all honesty, that was much more of a thing about 40 to 50 years ago. People today don't really care. I'm sure some do, but most people, yeah, don't care. Okay, how did we get here? Yeah, I don't know. I got off subject there for a little bit. Yeah. Alright, so yeah, crime. Crime is not bad in Grosse Pointe Woods. At all. It's actually one of the safer cities to live in the Detroit area, just like the other four Grosse Pointe cities are. Well, there's a few more things to point out here and there throughout Grosse Pointe Woods, like the Lochmoor Country Club and Grosse Pointe North High School, so I'll point those out when we get there. I'll finish this video up with some more commentary in a few minutes, and of course my final thoughts will be at the end of the video, and that's after I give Grosse Pointe Woods a Chris Livability score, so make sure to stay tuned for all of that. The Chris Livability score is something that I started earlier this year. Only about 30 or so cities have been rated by me at this point, and so far, the top 3 cities on the Chris Livability score at the time of me uploading this video are Grosse Pointe, Grosse Pointe Park, and Grosse Pointe Farms. Where will Grosse Pointe Woods stand? Well, you'll just have to wait and see. That's right. You will have to wait and see. Or since it's YouTube, you can always skip if you really want to see it. But yeah, that will be later, people. To the left is the Lochmoor Country Club, just referred to as the Lochmoor Club. It's a private club that first opened back in 1917. It joins the Country Club of Detroit as the 2 privately owned country clubs in the Grosse Pointes. Membership rates are not publicly available, which is typical of these fancy country clubs with crazy high membership fees. Usually it's a super crazy initiation fee that you'll have to pay, like $35,000. That's followed up with a separate reoccurring annual fee. But hey, if you're serious about golf, and you love golf, and you have stacks of cash, being a member at a country club like Lochmoor is probably incredibly valuable, so it's here for those who want it. This is Grosse Pointe North High School, home of the Norsemen? Norsemen, that's a new term to me. Well, a Norseman is a native or an inhabitant of Norway. Yeah, that's a pretty fitting mascot for Grosse Pointe. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Well, among the most notable alumni includes lead singer for the New Radicals, Greg Alexander, music producer Jared Lee Gosselin, who has worked with various artists, most notably Eminem, Megan White, who is the drummer for the White Stripes. Man, this is a strong musical alumni for Grosse Pointe North High School. Wow. Well, you also have former NHL player David Legwand, who had a 16-year career, and former Olympic swimmer Carly Piper, who in 2004 won a gold medal in the 4x200 meter relay. That's a pretty impressive list of Norseman alumni there, Grosse Pointe North. Pretty impressive. All right, well, it is now that time, people. You can't always trust a snob who only buys imported wine, and you can't always trust a politician who resigns. But you can always trust Chris's livability score. When it comes to the education, the Grosse Pointe School District is one of the best in the state. They're also among the best in the nation. And if those aren't good enough for you, you have private schools here too. It gets a 19 out of 20. Crime is not something to worry about in Grosse Pointe Woods. It gets an 18 out of 20. Downtown is the next category, and honestly, I didn't know where downtown Grosse Pointe was. But even though there's not really a defined downtown Grosse Pointe Woods, the entire Mack Avenue corridor through town sort of resembles a smallish suburban downtown, and it's walkable along the entire stretch, so I'll give downtown an 11 out of 20. The economy is fine here. Metro Detroit is home to the headquarters of 10 Fortune 500 companies, so even though the city proper has its struggles, the region as a whole has a stronger economy than what it gets credit for, and with Grosse Pointe Woods being an upper-class community, economy gets a 17 out of 20. The next category is recreation, and recreational opportunities are the weak points of living in Grosse Pointe Woods. As is often the case with many urban areas, you have to drive quite a ways before you get to some good hiking trails. I mean, it's not all bad because if you're a resident, you can obtain a park pass and enter some of the parks along Lake St. Clair and the other Grosse Pointe communities. Plus, if you have money and you have rich boy or rich girl clout, that will help you be a member at one of the exclusive country clubs if you like golf. Otherwise, recreational opportunities are limited. It gets a 10 out of 20. History is next, and all 5 of the Grosse Pointes are some of Detroit's earliest suburbs. The housing stock is full of older, large homes with character, and a lot of people love that. However, some of the stronger history in the Grosse Pointes can be felt in the other 4 points. It gets a 13 out of 20. Where Grosse Pointe Woods slightly lacks in history, however, it makes up for in amenities, as it has more amenities than any of the other Grosse Pointes. Plus, it's closer to other retail areas in St. Clair Shores and Harper Woods. Amenities gets a 13 out of 20. Last up is cost of living, and Grosse Pointe Woods is the most affordable Grosse Pointe, generally speaking. Sure, there's some million-dollar mansions in Grosse Pointe Woods, but looking at this map on Zillow here, I see a lot of listings for under $300K, a lot more than I've seen in the other Grosse Pointes. I mean, the one for $260K on the right, 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 1,645 square feet, a nice color of blue on the outside. That's a pretty nice deal in today's real estate climate. Cost of living for Grosse Pointe Woods gets a 14 out of 20. All in all, the Chris livability score for Grosse Pointe Woods is 115 out of 160, putting it right in between Grosse Pointe Farms and Grosse Pointe on the top of the list for all of the cities that I've done this for so far. Final thoughts here is, I should probably make it a point to visit some other upper-class suburbs in other states, so I don't look like a Michigan homer on the Chris Livability score. That's supposed to be an unbiased list. But Grosse Pointe Woods might not have some of the 10,000 to 20,000 square foot lakeside mansions that you'll find in the other points, but it's definitely the most affordable, and it's a great community to settle down in if you're starting a family or if you have kids and you want them to go through great schools without going through the route of private schools. And if you do want to go through the route of private schools, that's here too. Most of the homes in the points are older, and if that's what you like, then there's no better place in Metro Detroit. But if you want newer homes, you'll have to look on the opposite side of the metro area, or about 20 miles north. Regardless, all 5 of the Grosse Pointes are pretty nice, you can't debate that, and it's quite a contrast from what you see 5 miles west when you go through Detroit's far east side. Sure, some of the neighborhoods in Detroit that are on the other side of Mack Avenue, like English Village and whatever, are better than some of Detroit's worst hoods, but the home values still drop significantly. And unfortunately, you still see quite a few beat-up homes and empty lots in those nicer Detroit neighborhoods. But if you're a city snob, like if you're someone that has to live in the city and you dislike the suburbs, even though the Grosse Pointes are technically suburbs of Detroit, if you live here, you can sort of get away with pretending that you live in an upscale neighborhood of Detroit. The points are all a dense single-family residential neighborhood with mostly grid streets and older homes. It kind of feels like an upscale neighborhood of a larger city at times, so you can get away with pretending that you live in the city and not in the suburbs, but if that's you, just keep that fantasy in your head. Don't say it out loud, and all will be good and dandy. That being said, I do end the video here. And do me a favor, as if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as doing all of those things helps these videos destroy the evil monster that is the YouTube algorithm. Also make sure to hit that notification bell and select yes, so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, then you might enjoy checking out some of the featured playlists on this channel. Videos with amazing insights on other places like what you saw here can be found in my Detroit Suburbs playlist or in my Michigan playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. We'll see you next time. Peace.